In today's video, I want to talk to you about high blood pressure. This is something that I haven't really spoken about a lot, but this morning I woke up like very early this morning and I had this instruction from the universe that told me that I needed to record a video about high blood pressure. And what I want to share with you is what is actually happening in the body when you are dealing with high blood pressure, and what are some of the things that you actually want to be doing to address the root causes of blood pressure. So in regenerative health, our focus is really addressing the root causes of whatever imbalance is happening in the body and trusting that the body has the ability to regenerate itself, because it does. So a little bit of a personal story. My husband, I think right around the time we started dating, which would have been back in 2001, he was diagnosed with high blood pressure. He went to his medical doctor, they did a bunch of tests, and he got the diagnosis, and he was promptly put on blood pressure medication. And he took that blood pressure medication for the entire time we were together, right up to his death, his heart attack back in 2012. And back then, I did not have any background in nutrition or regenerative health, and I didn't actually have a very good understanding of how the human body functioned. And so I thought, okay, well, he's going to his doctor. His doctor is giving him blood pressure medication. It must be under control, right? Wrong. So all the blood pressure medication was doing was putting a Band-Aid on the situation. It was suppressing the symptoms, really, so that he could function in his day-to-day life. But there was nothing being done that actually looked at what was happening in his body, why he had high blood pressure. Now, with the information and the knowledge that I have now in regenerative health, I completely understand that what was happening in his body was that his kidneys, his adrenals were impacted, his lymphatic system was impacted, and there were all of these things that were happening in his body that were creating the high blood pressure. And the solution wasn't to be on medication until the end of his life. The solution was to actually address the root causes. So in terms of how your body is designed, your adrenals sit on top of your kidneys. And we have several elimination organs in our body: our colon, our skin, lungs, and liver, and kidneys. The kidneys are responsible for removing metabolic waste from your body. So if for some reason the kidneys are not filtering properly, that metabolic waste starts to back up in the system. Sometimes it gets diverted through the colon. Oftentimes it may start to come out through the skin. This is why skin issues are generally, I consider them to be gut issues, lymph issues, and kidney issues, not really skin issues. And so anytime someone comes to me and they have issues with their skin, we're addressing the root causes, which is what's going on with the gut, what's happening with the lymph. So in my husband's case, what was happening is that at the time, and actually throughout the whole time that I knew him, there was a lot of acidity in his system, not just exclusively from his diet, but also from the fact that he was constantly under stress. In fact, he was a very stressed out individual. I was always encouraging him to meditate and do breath work, and honestly, it wasn't in his wheelhouse. On top of that, not only was he always stressed, he drank a lot of coffee. He consumed sugar. He loved to have sugar. That was kind of like a daily for him. It was a way for him to relieve stress. So for example, he would go to a coffee shop, he'd get, an espresso for himself or a coffee, and then he'd get some kind of a baked good. And I was always speaking with him about, not doing that and cutting back on the caffeine and meditating and all of that. And honestly, he just thought I was super woo. And I was the one who was going to yoga and doing meditation, going to meditation retreats and all of that stuff. I was always into the holistic, but I didn't understand back then the body at the cell level the way that I understand it now as a practitioner. So when someone is dealing with high blood pressure, the adrenals sit on top of the kidneys. And when the kidneys rather aren't filtering properly, that waste starts to back up into the lymph system. And the body has to figure out how to get rid of it. On top of that, if somebody has a diet and a lifestyle that is very, very acidic and their body is under a lot of stress, your body is going to try to buffer those acids somehow. It'll use fat or cholesterol or calcium, depending on the person. And in his case, what his body was using was cholesterol. And unbeknownst to him, to myself, and maybe even to the understanding of his MD, is his body, that whole time that he was dealing with high blood pressure, what was actually happening in his body was starting to create blockages in his arteries. And those blockages continued over time, even as he continued to take the blood pressure medication, because it was his body's response to the situation that was going on within the body. So one of the things that we say in regenerative health is high blood pressure is really low flow, meaning that there's not adequate or proper blood flow within the body. And usually that is a result of too much toxicity, too much acidity, and there becomes this buildup of arterial plaque, cholesterol within the arteries. And so in his case, like if he were a client of mine today, one of the things we would do right away is absolutely we would change his diet, and he would need to detox first. So I would completely change his diet to a superfoods protocol, as well as high fruit. On top of that, he needed to be detoxing, so working on gut health. And I can tell you, he had gut issues the whole time I knew him, and it was kind of like a given. It was just something that he struggled with, that there wasn't any solution for. He just kind of would, like, pop antacids and do different things to try to manage the symptomology, but he didn't know that there was another way. And the doctor that he was working with didn't know that there was another way. And I mean, he didn't just work exclusively with one doctor. He worked with different doctors over a period of time, because we moved from one city to another. So obviously when he moved to the next city, he had a different doctor. And I was used to, as his wife and partner, I was used to him just going to the doctor every few months and getting a checkup and being prescribed more blood pressure medications. And back then, because I didn't have the knowledge that I have in regenerative health, my impression was that if somebody is taking medication, it must be doing something. It must be helping them in some way. What I understand now is that when you're taking medication, all it's doing is taking away the uncomfortable symptoms, but it's not addressing what's happening within the body. So if the diet and lifestyle is not correct, of course the body is not going to be healthy. And the medication will simply suppress the symptoms, but underneath, the person is getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So in his case, what ended up happening was, because he wasn't actually addressing what was happening within his body, his arteries continued to clog over a period of years. Like, we were together 11 years total, from the time we met to the time he passed away in 2012. And that whole time, those 11 years, he never actually addressed the root causes, because he didn't know that that was something that needed to be done. I didn't know that that was something that needed to be done. And one of the things that I promised him on the day of his funeral, and I'll try not to get emotional about this, is I promised him that I would figure out what happened, and if there was some way that it could have been prevented. And maybe by putting this information out there, I would be able to help somebody else, save someone else from all the heartache and the pain that I've gone through as a result of losing him way too early, and all of the effect that it had on my own personal health, because I ended up with a hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's diagnosis a year and a half, almost 2 years, I guess just over 2 years after his death, because my body went through such a shock, such a trauma, that my whole body shut down, right? So what happened in his case was that because his arteries were clogging all those years and he was just taking medication every day for blood pressure, not realizing that deeper work needed to be done, one unfortunate day a piece of plaque broke off from the cholesterol that was clogging up his heart, and that piece created a blockage, and that blockage resulted in him having a type of heart attack that is called the widowmaker. And I was assured by the coroner who worked on his case, on his file, that even if he had been in a situation where he was in an emergency room and he had that type of heart attack, the chances of him surviving were virtually zero. And a few years ago, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, my current fiance, a friend of his had that particular type of heart attack, and he was in the hospital in the emergency room, and they were unable to save him. So, I mean, nothing could have been done because of how extreme his situation was. However, had he, when he was put on high blood pressure medication, had he started to take that medication, but then started to investigate what was actually happening within his body, and as a result, changed his diet, changed his lifestyle, his arteries, his body would have reversed all of the cholesterol that was built up in the arteries. And this has been proven. Like, this is something, I'm not just talking fantasy here. So Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who used to work at the Cleveland Clinic, he was the first doctor that proved that you could reverse advanced stage heart disease through diet and lifestyle intervention. And he had a group of patients that he worked with that were due to get bypass surgery, and they all agreed that they were going to change their diet to a whole food plant-based diet, no alcohol, no coffee, and they were going to commit to some form of regular exercise, nothing strenuous. And what Dr. Esselstyn noted in his study is that every single patient who stuck with the diet and the lifestyle intervention, the arteries unclogged. They never needed bypass surgery. They never actually had a subsequent heart attack. So most of the people that were in his study had some kind of an event. They had a heart attack that fortunately didn't kill them, but there were major blockages in their arteries. And so the decision they had to make was whether or not they were going to do bypass surgery or whether they were going to do a diet and lifestyle intervention. And the group within that study that chose the diet and lifestyle intervention actually never ended up having another heart attack and never needed surgery, which is pretty amazing, right? So that's how powerful diet and lifestyle intervention is. Now, in the case of my husband, because I knew him well and I knew his habits and I know what some of the particulars were that were going on with his body, you know, for someone like him, definitely I would need to I would encourage him to detox his body in order to actually regenerate. So what does that look like? That looks like eliminating coffee, alcohol. He liked having wine on the weekends. He was a wine drinker. So that would mean eliminating coffee, eliminating alcohol, and supporting his kidneys, his adrenals, definitely supporting his kidneys because his kidneys weren't filtering. So that metabolic waste that needed to be released out through the kidneys was backing up into the lymph system. So we would be supporting his kidneys, his lymph, and his adrenals with herbal formulations, changing the diet, and introducing, in my case, I work with some biohacks. So in his case, I would encourage him to use some of the biohacks that I work with, like molecular hydrogen and redox, because that the redox would help the communication between the cells. And obviously he had gut damage, so the redox would also help to repair some of the damage within his gut. And I would also use a superfoods protocol to work on the damage in his gut. And then along with that, molecular hydrogen. So because molecular hydrogen helps to reduce inflammation in the body, it's a selective antioxidant, and it upregulates the mitochondria in the cells, as well as helps to upregulate hundreds and hundreds of genes. And this is what I feel would be kind of like the beginning base protocol to put them on month 1, month 2. And then what I always like to see with someone is I like to see how is their body responding, what's going on, what is starting to come to the surface, and where do we need to focus more of our energies. Now, I know for a fact I was with the man for 11 years. He never did a parasite cleanse. So definitely anytime we have an internal environment that has a lot of stagnation and kidneys aren't filtering properly and the lymph system is backing up, addressing parasites is a big part of that equation as well. And so I would probably start him on some gentle parasite cleansing end of month 1 into month 2, and then probably some deeper parasite cleansing. In terms of reversing the high blood pressure, it probably would take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, guessing, and that kind of depends on how his body would respond. Now, I'm sharing this information with you. Unfortunately, he passed away over 12 years ago, just over 12 years ago. I don't have the privilege of sharing this information with him. I have the privilege of sharing this information with you. And just because there are so many people who have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, autoimmune conditions, cancer, diabetes, obesity, this range of chronic health issues that are running rampant now within society, especially within the US and Canada and most Western countries. Just because so many people are dealing with these chronic health issues doesn't make them normal or natural. It's completely unnatural. The human body is able to heal itself, but in order for it to heal itself, it has to be supported. It has to be. And there's Dr. Alan Goldhammer, whose work I've followed for years from True North Health Center. He always says health comes from health promoting habits. And unfortunately, we live in a society that really encourages people to make really poor diet and lifestyle decisions. And in fact, everywhere we go, we're inundated and encouraged to make poor choices in terms of what we put into our mouth, whether it is alcohol or fast food or processed food or whatever it is that's out there and it's advertised to us. You have to kind of have your blinders on and refuse to see that kind of stuff and just go, okay, you know what? I'm going to put raw living foods into my body because I know that's the most nourishing. I know for myself, I don't pay attention to any mass advertising. I don't pay attention to any commercials. And I definitely don't pay attention to what people around me are doing unless they have healthy habits. And so, and if they want to judge me for the fact that I would rather have my green power shake than have a glass of red wine on a Friday night, so be it. I don't care. What other people think of me is none of my damn business. I want to be as healthy as possible. I want to support my body in optimal health. And obviously what I do works because I've managed to reverse 2 chronic health conditions using diet and lifestyle changes. And now I have the privilege and the opportunity to share this information with you. So I do hope that you found value in this video. Please go ahead and like it, share it with someone who could really benefit from this information. So if you know someone who's dealing with high blood pressure or high cholesterol, honestly, those 2 conditions are 2 of the easiest, simplest conditions to reverse along with type 2 diabetes. Like certain other conditions like autoimmune conditions, mold, Lyme, those kinds of things take a little bit more time. Cancer, it can get a little bit more complex. But when someone has high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or type 2 diabetes, those are so easy to fix if someone is actually willing to support their body correctly with diet and lifestyle changes. Now, unfortunately, that's not the culture we live in. We're not encouraged to make good decisions when it comes to taking care of ourselves. But as you hear this information, as you receive this information, I encourage you to make better decisions regarding your health. Does that mean that you get to be perfect fresh out of the gate? Nope. Everything that I do currently for my diet and lifestyle, it's evolved over the last several years, especially the last 5 years, as I've learned how the human body actually functions and what I need to be doing on a daily basis to promote health within my body, right? So, suffering is totally optional. Just because you have a diagnosis doesn't mean that you have to buy into the diagnosis. You can, once you have a diagnosis, now you know, okay, this is what's up with my body. Now you can empower yourself with information and decide to get on a track to reversing that chronic disease within your body. Remember that 95% of all illness is diet and lifestyle related. And even if certain genes run in your family, it does not matter, because you can upregulate genes using things like molecular hydrogen and diet and lifestyle changes. You can use that to actually upregulate healthy genes and downregulate unhealthy genes. So ultimately, you are the creator. The power is in your hands. And I would encourage you to share this video with anyone that you think could benefit from this information. Give the video a like. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them below. Make sure that you check all of the links within the video description. And if you have a desire to work with me, I have an amazing membership program called Elevate, which is all about addressing the root causes of chronic illness within the body and empowering you to get into the best health of your life possible. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of my online community. I so appreciate you and love you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now. Thanks so much for being here. I hope that you are enjoying the content on this channel. If you have not already done so, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you are notified every single time a new piece of content goes up. There is new content that goes up every single week. If you're not already a part of my online community, go to my website, sign up for my newsletter so that you are in the know. On my newsletter, I'll be sharing all kinds of promos and discounts as they come up. To work with me, check out my monthly membership, Elevate, which is really focused on addressing parasites and the root causes of chronic illness within the body. If you are interested in holistic health and well-being, you have definitely landed in the right place. Thanks so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.